Hello, my name is Kelly Brotman, and today I will be discussing a new method of detection for the current outbreak of bacterial meningitis, the new strain Serovirus 812 that has recently emerged. So as of right now, the standard to detect this disease is a diagnostic test that requires an intravenous dye. So this is fairly invasive. The needle is quite large and you have to inject a significant volume of this dye in order for the test to be reliable. There is a risk of side effects. Anytime you add a substance to a person's body, you do risk that patient reacting to the substance. It is very costly. The equipment to detect the image from the dye is expensive, and you also need a highly trained professional to interpret the results. So overall, this is not a very good way to diagnose this particular illness in the sense that it's the only test available. So the current method that we are proposing is called Seroassay 812, and this is a sandwich ELISA test. So on the left, you can see a graphical image of how a sandwich ELISA test works, that we have a membrane that is bound with antibody that will react with the bacterial meningitis. So when a patient adds their sample, in this case, it's going to be urine, and this test will detect metabolite in the urine from the bacteria. So you add the urine to the well, it travels across the membrane. If there's any bacterial metabolite present, it will attach to the antibody, and then after adding a few other reagents, you will see a color change. So it works the same way that a lot of assays in the lab do. So a lot of people are already familiar with this method of testing. So that's another advantage to this particular test. So let's look at the data. From the people that we tested with this screening test, there were 10,000 people. 1,400 were confirmed to have the disease, and 8,600 were confirmed to not have the disease. So of those, the positive screen results, there were a little over 8,400 people that tested positive with our screen, and 1,483 people tested negative with the screen. So what does this mean exactly? If we want to look at the sensitivity of the test, we want to see how many people that are diseased tested positive. So we have the people that tested positive that were diseased, 1,274, out of the total number of people that are diseased. So our sensitivity is 91%, which is pretty good. So what this means is if you have a patient that you know has the disease, their screen is probably reliable. However, if we look at the specificity, this is the number of people not diseased that tested negative. So we have 1,357 out of 8,600. And this is a very low specificity. It's a little under 16%. So what this means for your patients is that if they have a negative screen, they could still have the disease. So a specificity is the true negatives, but it's also the false positives. So we want to look at something that's a little bit more of a predictor of what the screen results could mean for the patients. Because patients don't understand sensitivity and specificity, they want to know if they test positive, what's the likelihood they have the disease? And if they test negative, what's the likelihood that the disease has been ruled out? So the positive predictive value, we want to look at the number of people that tested positive and the number of people that actually have the disease. So we have 1,274 out of a total of 8,417 people that tested positive. So this is a very low positive predictive value, a little over 15%. So what this means for a patient is that if someone tests positive on the screening test, there's a very high chance that it could be a false positive. So that would subject the patient to more testing, so they would have to get that confirmed by another method. The negative predictive value, however, is how many people test negative that do not have the disease. So this is 1,357 people out of a total of 1,483, which means the negative predictive value is 91.5%. So for a patient's perspective, this means that the test has a pretty good chance of, if they tested negative, they truly are negative. So that can help put them at ease. So to summarize, this test is much more cost efficient than the current intravenous dye, which means it's user-friendly, and the best way to utilize this test is if you want to rule out disease. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and hopefully we will be able to combat this disease together.